All right, we're back here at Moment Y Block. We're with the 2800, and we're looking at some manifold things. Been kind of pulling my hair out, messing around. I came up with another manifold. This is a Ranger manifold. It was the right price, good deal for me. And the thought was, in our dynoing scheme, see, all along what we've been trying to do is, you know, we have this one. This is the 4-barrel manifold that we built out of the stalker. And then I came up with a Offenhauser some time ago. And, you know, the plan was to build the engine and dyno it, and then test the two manifolds and see, you know, how they do. So doing some research on these things, I've been figuring out that a lot of people like to run the 350 Holley 2-barrels. So I got this big idea that, oh, I'll get one of these manifolds and, you know, I'll work on the plenum shape and port match it and do those things, and maybe we'll try to run a 352 barrel. Part of it was because I thought we had some. I thought upstairs, you know, in the back 40, that we had a couple decent old 350s, and we went and looked at them. They're really like 280s. They're like early 60s factory Ford Holleys. They Venturi size and the butterfly size is wrong. But then as I started doing this, I started thinking, well, you know, this 4-barrel manifold, it's a little in depth, you know, to do it, but I think it comes out really nice. You know, what if we took and made the plenum as big as we could get it inside the factory shape under the spacer? So we took basically these plenums and elongated them toward the runner pairs, right? So over on this side, you got two runners close together, and on this side, you got two runners close together. So if you see it, it looks kind of staggered. But we bored these out as wide as we could get them, and then we elongated this one this way and this one this way. And the idea was, well, maybe what we can do, hold on, I'm trying to get a gasket, is we can use the same manifold, right, and still run a 2-barrel on it if we want. It'll just have slightly bigger plenums, which I think will probably help the 2-barrel. Just because I think the 2-barrel's too small. But then we could actually create an adapter, and hold on, stay with me here. Let me get a couple bolts. This old Sportsman 2-barrel restrictor plate. I kind of took this thing and turned it upside down and been messing with it. But you know, if we could build an adapter along these lines, it would actually be a simpler process. It would be a more extensive single adapter because it would be thicker, made out of a bigger piece of metal. But basically you would bolt it down and scribe the shape out on top of the gasket surface, and then it would just become kind of a porting thing. You would port it and do your blending and a little radiusing. So the idea now, in all of this messing around, instead of just trying to build an engine and test two different manifolds and go, okay, how do they run? I've, you know, over-engineered and thought and dreamed up this, run a couple different manifolds on the same manifold. And frankly, I don't know if we would have enough time to even run all this stuff, but the idea really came up, you know, was to try to build a simpler spacer that would make modifying the OEM 2-barrel into a 4-barrel a simpler process, you know, and could be matched up with, you know, basic hand tools, stuff like that. So, you know, the other thing too, that a lot of guys know this and a lot of guys don't, you know, is that 2-barrels and 4-barrels are not flowed at the same depression from the factory. So the CFM numbers are not relevant to each other, right? A 500 Holley is not bigger than a 390 4-barrel. A 350 2-barrel is not 10-ish% smaller than a 390 4-barrel. It's actually more like 30% smaller. Okay, 500 Holly is actually 4 or 5% smaller than a 394 barrel. So, you know, that's one thing you have to understand, and it's really just the square root of 2, because they flow 2 barrels at 40 inches of water, and they 1.5 or 3 inches of mercury, and they flow 4 barrels at 1.5. And the difference in flow is the square root of the differential. So you take 4 divided by 2, you get 2. The square root of that's 141. You take whatever a 2 barrel flows and you divide it by 1.41, and that's what it'll flow relative to a 4 barrel. So, you know, from that aspect, that's why I was thinking that, you know, the 2 barrel is gonna, I think the 2 barrel 350 anyway is gonna come up a little shy, where I don't think we're going to be able to make 200 horsepower with that. My guess is, you know, we might get close to a horsepower per cubic inch in this state of tune. Okay, you could make more than 200 horsepower on a if you put a 352 barrel or something on a V8, because, you know, the bigger displacement engine with a heavier rotating mass, you know, will it'll consume the pumping losses. The state of tune of the engine will drop way down, you know. But if you had a 300-inch engine and you put a 352 barrel on it, you know, it would be very possible to make the 200 horsepower. But if you actually look at the efficiency or the horsepower per cubic inch, it would be very low, because you're taking on a lot of pumping losses to get that power. So the 500 is really probably a much closer size carburetor for the 200 horsepower level, but because it's got large venturis and stuff, the 500s, I think they struggle under quarter throttle. So, you know, unless you were gonna triangular boosters in one, or, you know, do a billet metering block and, you know, really sort out the idle restrictions and play with the power valve restrictions and stuff like that, you know, and really get the 500 dialed in to be on a small displacement engine. That's why I think a lot of people don't use them, is because they're not as driving friendly as the smaller carburetors are. So anyway, we've rambled on here. It's Sunday night, it's late, like totally ready to go home, but just kind of show you what we've been doing. This particular manifold's our latest idea, good, bad, or indifferent, I'm not sure, but is the way to try a 2 barrel, and potentially, if this dyno's well, come up with an easier way to modify factory 2 barrel manifolds into 4 barrel manifolds. So, all right, man, for Moment Machine, hit like, subscribe, have a good weekend, see ya.